Hello and welcome to the I3 lecture series hosted by the Masters in Digital Photography program at the School of Visual Arts. Tonight we celebrate our 150th lecture since we started back in 2011, and I can think of no better person to help us mark the occasion than our founding chair, Katrin Eismann. Katrin is best known for being the author of 4 seminal books on digital photography, Photoshop restoration and retouching, Photoshop masking and compositing, the creative digital darkroom, and real-world digital photography. She received her BFA in photographic illustration from the Rochester Institute of Technology and her MFA in design at SVA. She was inducted to the Photoshop Hall of Fame in 2005 and named a Sony Artisan of Imagery in 2015. Katrin is currently a product manager for engagement at Adobe Systems, where her experience as an artist, author, and educator all come into play as she works on developing new learning models for photographers all around the world. I know that for most of you, an introduction is not really necessary. Katrin is our Photoshop diva. We love her. She will always be our Photoshop diva. And Katrin, you're an inspiration to so many of us. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much. It was Tom's idea that I speak this week because he knew that Adobe would pay for me to be here. And then it was Marco with his fabulous spreadsheet that saw, it's the 150th. So it all worked out. This talk is all about change. My parents emigrated to the United States in 1952, and they landed here on West 23rd Street. And they came over on the General Stewart, which was a former military ship. And this is the manifest of the ship. I love it. And they were stateless. My parents were refugees, sponsored by the International Rescue Committee. I'll leave out what's going on nowadays, but it touches me very deeply because of this. Then in 1957, I came along, meaning I am the only one in my family that can be president. I'm ready. See, I already had a typewriter back then. But change, my parents and my family, they inspire me. Because as my father's the only survivor of his family, coming to the United States was, of course, a very big step. And I celebrate change. And so this is a talk about photography. I went to the Rochester Institute of Technology where I met Tom, and I was a 30-year-old freshman, okay, because I flunked out of college the first time. So I'm showing you images from my student work to show you this is all work before Photoshop. That already before Photoshop, I was working with layers, creative colors, motion, destroying negatives, and realizing I could not express myself in 1/125th of a second. I loved how cameras saw the world, but it never fulfilled me. And I was always interested in politics, gender representation, honesty, and my relationship with nature. And so I am. You always knew when I was in the darkroom, because there was like tinsel and leaves in the enlargers when I was done. Tom's the only one that knows this work. I know Tom longer than I know my husband. I was stubborn. I was determined. I'm going to do nudes in the mall. No, I didn't do that. I had these little cutouts of myself that I would set up. And notice there's nobody there because everybody ran away. Like, look, she's naked. And I'm from Europe. It's like, there's nothing here you haven't seen before. But I'm already showing you that I wanted to create multidimensional images. And then in the beginning, digital cameras were truly horrible. And so I used the scanner as my input device, made these scanographs. This was a 3-pass scanner, took about 90 seconds, and I couldn't see for like 2 minutes afterwards because that CCD was so bright. But don't worry, I did protect the scanner with acetate. But I had a tremendous amount of fun just seeing what was going to happen. And that's what I still try to keep alive in digital. Because in digital, we're responsible for every pixel, and there's a tendency of making sterile artwork. And I really want serendipity to be a part of my process. This is my reaction to my first gray hair. I'm like, that's it. I'm dying. It's over. The hair didn't survive. And then this is just horrible. I'm going to show you a lot of bad work. Okay? I was very fortunate to be the first intern at the Kodak for creative imaging in Camden, Maine. Why? Because a friend of ours knew that I knew digital and knew Photoshop from RIT, and he worked for Kodak, Lucien, who's having a big opening at Pioneer Works this Friday. And he recommended me. And you're with your colleagues here. Network with your colleagues. It's the only way you're going to get ahead. So CCI, I had to turn it digital. This is probably the most commercial shoot I ever did. All right? And there's two very important cameras in this picture. The first one is the Kodak DCS 100, which was a Nikon F3 attached to a 12-pound hard drive. It was so portable that could hold 156 images tethered with a telephone cable to this Nikon. And I would walk around with it in Camden, and people would go, "Is that Nikon your heart monitor?" And I was like, this is great. And then an Apple employee, Alexis Gerard, came up to CCI, and he had the Apple QuickTake 100, which took 8 pictures at 640 by 480. And I was like, "Puh." Well, we know which company is more successful in photography now. So I learned, do not poo-poo technology. Look at it, pay attention to it, learn from it. And now this picture, as odd as it is, we donated the Kodak camera to the Smithsonian because we had all the manuals and the discs and everything. And Bob Rose, now from RIT, donated his QuickTake 100. So working the unibrow here. I can say Douglas Kirkland photographed me, all of 6 pictures. It took 3 minutes to process the image to get the computer to open it. So he didn't take a lot of pictures. So because I was early with digital, I started working with Photoshop since before it was released. I've had the privilege to teach, write, present, and photograph in 6 continents. And so I had to always keep learning, and these are the images that taught me what layers were. There was life before layers. Layers are for wimps. Who needs layers, right? And so I'm going to go very quickly with this. All right. But this is what taught me more about Photoshop. I'm interested in politics. This is a reference to World War I, how women are distorted if you don't get married soon enough. And then the whole idea of being so obsessed about your body that every magazine article is comparing you to this, obviously this fantastic ballet dancer. But look at how women were valued earlier. Large thighs, large breasts, very feminine. And so I really wanted to contrast these two. And it was because this image, in 1993, I was invited to be part of Montage 93 in Rochester, New York, which is a full city summer festival of imaging art. And they said, we're going to give you 1,000 square feet, and it needs to be interactive. And I'm like, I have a Quadra 950 in Photoshop, but I can talk. So that was my interactivity. So with the help of my husband, who shot a lot of the source material, I created 8 images. They're 4 feet by 5 foot Duraclear, mounted in this, it felt like a light box. And this is the image that you walked into, and people would go, "Oh, look, it's a science exhibit. Let's go in." Little did they know what they were going to see. This is what we send out on the rover. Being from Germany, I was very concerned what was going on in Germany in 1993 and how the media is twisting what we know about, and how in 1993, neo-Nazis were burning Turkish family homes, and that people need to decide, do you pay attention to the media because you have cellulite problems, and do you turn away from what's important? And I was putting the show together, I'm like, it's exactly the same nowadays. And so you have to imagine this is a 5 foot picture of me. People would come in, they would look at it, Then they would look at me, and they would look at it, and I'd be like, ah, that's me. Here you had to decide, because it was transparent, the words here were from the German president, what they said at the funeral, or you could go to the other side and read about plastic surgery. But you had to make that decision. What's important to you? And so then I had read the fact that half the world's population lives off of $1 a day. Now it's up to $2. And I tried to represent all the people with the different rice kernels, and I wondered, what would an American buy if you gave them $1? And that's backed by food stamps. My husband photographed this with a 4x5 view camera. That is perfect shine fluke Snickers bar. Okay? And so I'm addressing world hunger, and then I'm also trying to think about how do we learn about how we talk about other people. And these next 3 images created quite a bit of conversation, that where do these children learn these words? Of course the children don't know these words. They learn them from their parents, their family, their community, and now, of course, social media. So you have to imagine these words 4 by 5 feet. In the center, Jesse Helms. There's a senator from North Carolina. And my husband wrote him, he wanted a picture, and he signed it, best regards, Jesse Helms. And that's the US Constitution flipped. And we know that the Emoluments Clause is not phony. So nothing's changed, which is really frustrating. And what happened was this exhibit was never empty. People came back over and over again to hear the conversations. And then school kids came, and I was like, oh my gosh. They were so hip, they got it right away. Then they brought their parents. And all the parents were doing were staring at me. You know, and the kids were like, that's her. So that was a great experience. And the moral of that story is if someone offers you something, just say yes and figure out how you're going to do it later. That exhibit got me to be invited to a private girls' school in Los Angeles to be an artist in residence, and I decided to explore my relationship with nature and, once again, my own mortality. And I'm going to show you how I made these images and how they were displayed. And so I wanted to show the interior and the exterior, because I always believe that if you look out into the universe, you're seeing yourself, and if you look within yourself, you're seeing the universe. Now, these were also printed as a 4 feet by 4 feet Duraclear, and then mounted on the windows in the gallery. Because when I went to see the gallery a few months ago, they're like, yeah, you could use these walls. And I was like, no, I'm going to use these windows. Because the light coming through those windows was so great. So it was like having giant ectochrome slides. Oh, God, I just dated myself. Hanging in the windows. And the students loved it. It was a girls' school. They literally moved into the space. All right? And so I want to show you how I made an image. Photographer, I was always collecting source material. I had a ton of 2 1/4 chromes of things. So I scanned it. I scanned myself. I think it was Leica lent me a scanning camera. And I scanned myself, not a flatbed scanner, but once again, I'm scanning myself, my shadow. I had stock imagery of old medical illustrations. And then I put myself together and created these images. And I mentioned I scanned myself. This is what happens if you breathe while you're scanned. Okay? Which is sort of cool, but it didn't really fit the project. And this is not a meaningful gesture. This is me just trying to avoid retinal burn, because that thing needed so much light that I was in pain. So, and there's another exhibit. And you can see it was like stained glass. The images would just sort of crawl around the ground over the course of the day. So then I got another call from Keene State College. We'd like you to do an exhibit, but use compositing. And I'm like, did anyone ask Vincent van Gogh to like redo Starry Night? No, I'm not saying I'm on that level, of course, but I was sort of tired of compositing. And anybody in this room that's done compositing understands that. And so I was like, all right, I'll do compositing. Not a problem. With a $12 mirror from Home Depot. And I went and I bought these fish, and I photographed them on the mirror outside. We had a home on the Hudson River. The seagulls kept getting closer and closer because they wanted my expensive Japanese fish. They got them. And so these are composites, but done in real life. And then I cleaned the mirror and I returned it. So, and you know, I just love the beauty of these creatures and everything that's reflected. And that the serendipity came back, because you know how you're not going to control the cloud. So here's that installation, one wall, and then the more blue wall. I never told them it wasn't a composite. Not that important. And because of digital, I was invited to be part of the tour of Tasmania for Adobe for Lightroom 2. Believe me, I said yes really quickly to that, where they took 20 artists across Tasmania. And I'm having a great time working with a digital medium format camera. And notice at my feet I'm photographing bones. I'm just, if something's dead, I will find it. Or John will like, I left you a surprise. I'm like, okay, he does love me. And so it was a great experience, 20 of us with some Adobe people. I found bigger bones, which was great. I found these whale bones and set up a little studio and schlepped all the bones to this area. You can see how the light's changing. And so I like that, because the history of Australia is based on nature and, of course, the whaling industry and all the pain and suffering that caused. And people in Tasmania love their country, the island. And I think about 40% of it is national park. And there's always like, you know, keep it clean, etc. So I was like, I want to go to the dump, because I wanted to see if the dump was clean. And they were like, okay. They gave me an orange vest, and I hung out at the dump. And what they do before dumping, they sort the garbage. There might be something people can use. This scale will never tell you the truth. It's perfect. And so I found everything that were alike. So I found these scales, and I had my medium format set up. In the meantime, people asked me where things were, and I showed them. And then I made these grids. Okay, and there was a big show, and then the director of tourism bought 2 of the prints. So I'm not sure what that means. Maybe you just want to get them out of circulation. I don't know. I did a series of the tools I found, was like referencing Walker Evans. You know, anything that was similar I found and photographed and turned into a grid. And I just had the greatest time. Oh, and of course we had to drive and the whole left side of the road. And I shared a car with a tall German woman. It was great. And our car was full of these stuffed animals, because her project was dealing with the stuffed animals. And it was a good conversation starter. So I helped schlep her animals and lights, and we had a great old time. Let's just say we were not the documentary people of that group. My parents immigrated back to Germany and retired in the Black Forest. This is a picture. This is how my husband sees my family. They had this house in the Black Forest. And you know, when you go visit your family, sometimes it can be a little like, when's the flight? And so what I did was I set up a little studio up in the attic. And I would literally just photograph whatever I found and made these little still lifes. And it was my refuge. And in a way, they're composites, but they're not. You know, I set them up. And it would just really help me deal with my family, because it gave me time to just sort of do what I was there for. And my mother would write me, I have something for you, like this bulb, which is great, because they were both artists. So often dealing with heritage. Now, in all honesty, notice I went from complex composites to simpler composites to still life to I am burned out, but oh my gosh, I need to photograph. iPhone 4, 2011 enters the picture. Stephanie, you're going to like this. My first iPhone picture was from the Westminster Dog Show, taken off the television. Okay? I made these small because they are truly terrible, and there's a lot of that Instagram filter Sutro. You remember Sutro? And there was like, that was the one that meant you were depressed, so I stopped using it. So slowly they got a little better. But the idea is you have to practice your craft. And I just see the world better through a frame. And so this, in a way, re-engaged me with photography. right? And John learned this about me. The less technology I have, the better I do. I mean, the simpler, the better. And so what the iPhone let me do is really continue exploring how a camera sees the world and how I can use time to show actually what I see. All right? If it is raining, I will follow you. And I ask you, please, to, you know those clear umbrellas? They're the best. Okay? And if you hold an iPhone, it's even better. So I literally, when it's raining, and Mark and Tom know this, because I would walk up to Port Authority like, yep, I'm going to follow people. It's New York. Everybody ignored you. It's great. And so I had the greatest time, and it was relatively waterproof. So this is here a woman, I just kept following her 3 times. New Yorkers don't care. They just don't care. It's great. So the iPhone really helped got me excited about photography again. And this is some experimentation I did with the Average Pro Cam app, where you literally, once again, I can't deal with a single exposure. I am not good at it. And so multiple exposures that the phone puts together, and then I processed. And these experiments led me to a self-portrait project where I'm like, well, Average Cam Pro is really meant for astrophotography, where I'm like, I don't want to take pictures of the stars. They all look the same. And so I used multiple exposures on myself and started wrapping myself in all sorts of things, because what I was addressing here was, oh my gosh, trying to break through that whole idea of classic beauty. Believe me, once you hit 40, you'll understand. So I wrapped myself and I painted myself, and then John had been in China for 2 years, and we were going to spend a month traveling. And so I decided to travel with face paint, rubber bands, and string, because I knew I was going to suffer jet lag for about 8 days. And so I needed to do something while I was like 3 in the morning. And so it was me in the bathroom, tying myself up, being in the bathtub. And the best thing about hotel rooms is they have those interesting mirror lights. And that's why I have these great catch lights. And so this is what I would do late at night. It was great. This is what an image looked like before it was processed. With the Average Cam Pro, I did about 8 exposures, and this is what it would look like after I processed it. And then this is how I'd wake John up. So he's very scared. He's like, what? Don't worry, I didn't time him up. That was just for me. So, but the phone just lets me sort of experiment. As Jaime mentioned, in 2015, I was fortunate to be asked to be a Sony Artisan of Imagery. It's a portrait that Marco did of me. I was like, make me out of focus, less retouching. And the Sony cameras also gave me that new lease on life, mainly because what you see in the viewfinder is what you're getting. So I went to Cuba, and I'm like, I'm not going to photograph the cars. I'm not going to photograph the cars. And just photograph the cars, right? I mean, you just have to. But I sort of tried to do it a little more creatively, with a lot of motion. And if you go, you just get it out of your system. Jaime and I spent 2 trips in Cuba, and you're going again in February. That's great. And so that's the only Spanish I could say is, may I photograph your hands? And because the Sony is silent, I took like a dozen pictures and would slowly move up to the face, and they never knew what I was doing. That's so mean. But I've always found these pairs, lots of pairs. And I like the Sony because it's just so much smaller than your traditional 35 millimeter. Continuing with with Sony and working, most people won't recognize me unless I have my little RX100 with me. And we had the good fortune to be able to go to Zimbabwe, and we found these stone carvers. And because I had this little tiny camera, I wasn't intimidating. I get very close to people, And I really enjoyed that once again, less technology is better technology for me. And so, of course, I had to photograph the wildlife, right? If you're going to be there, you're going to go once. And just good not to say you're not going to do it. So this is not with the little camera. This is with the A7R3 with a 70-200. Amazing, the history of Zimbabwe and the people. Very, very impressive. These men are playing checkers. They're with the bottle caps. And a long lens makes you look like a professional. Ignore the white wine. That's my part. But we know how lucky we are. We practically say it every single day. So we don't take anything for granted. And as mentioned, John was in China for 2 years working at a Shanghai Tech University building up an art program. And so I went over 3 times. We did a lot of traveling. I also presented there. And so feel very fortunate to have gone there, and I'm very impressed with the people there. It's amazing. I didn't sleep a lot either, so I just wander around. Now look, check that out. This is what kids eat after school for a snack. It looked really delicious, and he obviously thinks it's great. I love it, and just walk right in. Had to go to the Avatar landscape, right? So. And also, back with Sony, being able to work in the studio. Crystal's here. I said you were going to be in the show. I just love being able to see exactly what I'm going to be getting. And so I really enjoy doing portraiture. I don't do it that much, and Mark will help with most of these shoots. Faraz is also having an opening this Friday. And I was fortunate to be here to have willing models. And experimenting with motion, placing things in front of the lens, etc. So people say, oh, you should specialize. I'm interested in way too many things to specialize. And so my Instagram feed is not consistent. It's literally what you see is what you get. And now, continuing with the technology, the last body of work, wow, I thought I was going to be going long. I took a workshop in long exposure photography. And so I went to the lake with my neutral density filter and the tripod and the Sony, and I photographed the sunrise. And I'm like, that is so cool. Well, I can't do that all summer, right? I mean, it was cool. But that's the thing with photography. You have an idea and you try it out. And then you keep going from it. Sometimes it's like, this isn't working, you need to, save it. But what this showed me was, once again, how I could use time to show the sunrise on the lake differently. And so I'm standing there like, what else can I do? And I'm like, do still lives in the lake. I'm by myself, but I hear myself. And so I run to the house and I get some lemons. And I do it, and I photograph it, and I'm like, that is so cool. Lemons do not float. And I'm like, that is so cool. What else do I have in the house? And so I would have about a 20-minute time period each morning to shoot, just when the sun was just about to come over the horizon, and then a few minutes afterwards when I wanted that golden light. I wanted the long exposure. 1.6 seconds was my ideal exposure. And so I started thinking about, you saw that clock face before. That lake has obviously been there for eons, and we're there for like one little drop of time. And so how can I show that? How can I sort of show that passage of life, of time, of the futility, of things that people do that just make no sense, right? So you can't saw water, but I'm going to show it. And so this series is called The Futility of Memory, where you can't iron the lake. The lake is, of course, much bigger than you are. And it also had a lot to do with what women do in housework. okay? Because whenever I do the dishes, I'm wondering, how many times have I washed this cup? And I'm going to mark one day so I can keep track. But then I don't think I want to know. And we do have a dishwasher and John helps, so it won't work. So I always wanted to be able to dance. So during the day, I would drive around to Salvation Armies and thrift stores and find things. My budget limit was $5 because I would ruin everything I got. Because believe me, that iron did not work after I put it in the lake. And then someone had to fill the lake up. So more futility. The things that people do which just don't make any sense, which are not important. And so I bought this children's dress. And we don't have children, so I think about that quite often. And I saw this picture, I'm like, there's something missing. Me. I was taking pictures of myself, so I had to get back into the pictures. So now I'm in the pictures again with these objects in the lake, working with these long exposures. Once again, loving the serendipity, loving the surprises, not being in control, and working with framing and motion, etc. I knew the neighbors were watching me. Because at the end of the summer, they're like, so what do you do in New York City? I'm like, you know that stuff by the lake? I teach people to do that. And they're like, okay. I knew they were watching. I don't care. It's Europe. There's nothing here you haven't seen before. People are like, we've seen it, Katrin. We've seen it. All right, but I just love the play of the light and the surprises that I got, and that excited me to no end. So here is me photographing, and I'm running. You can see the process. I run to the lake, and the camera's on this seawall, and I have a remote trigger, and I have this black dress on. And I keep running back and forth. Oh, black dress is not working. Put on the white slip. Go, keep going. Get the horse in the water. I always wanted a horse, right? Go. Nope, wrong camera position. So this is how I spent my mornings. And then that was it. Take the horse and go home. Well, home was 20 yards further. And yeah, and this is the image that came out of that. And every girl wants a horse, right? And so sometimes John would get up and help me, which is really great. I'm not sure why he got the towel. All right. It was great when he would get up and help me because those were the better pictures. And this is that image. Right? So you see there's a complete cycle from what I was doing in the mall, what I was doing with the politics, what I'm doing now, that it's all about the exploration of our relationship with time, with politics, with nature, with our own mortality, not at 1/125th of a second, because I just don't see the world like that.
Katrin, can you tell us about your new job at Adobe and what that entails?
I could, yes. So I've been at I left 3 months short of 20 years being at SVA. And John started here at SVA. I grew up in Ridgewood, New Jersey. And so I always knew about SVA, and they'd be like, oh, I want to go to SVA, but I would never be able to study there. Oh, my gosh. And then same thing with John. Suddenly we're both working here. And after being here for that long, we wanted to downsize. And coincidentally, a text came across the cell phone saying, do you know somebody that can do this job? And I'm like, I can do that job. And it was developing international educational content that you see if you have Lightroom Mobile. Oh my gosh, here it's going to sound like an app. If you have Lightroom Mobile, you will click on the home button. And there's in-app tutorials where you actually work along with the author, with the teacher. You're moving the sliders. They'll tell you why, but you're like, oh, that's what that feature does. Because whenever anyone in software says, oh, it's so intuitive, you have my permission to kick them, because it's not intuitive. We might be using Photoshop every day or using Lightroom every day, but none of this is intuitive. And so I've worked with international authors from Japan, Russia, Mexico, Brazil, Germany, United Kingdom, all around the world, developing tutorials that are all in the app that you can learn from. And there's a big photo conference called Adobe Max in November, and we've queued up 275 new tutorials that I reviewed and edited and looked at 2 to 4 times. And there's still mistakes. And so, and we're going to keep developing that, and then hopefully in the future, everybody will be able to write tutorials and be featured. So that is the goal. It's going to be pretty. It's pretty exciting, because here's what happens. Like, oh, what does the texture slider do? Oh, go to YouTube, and then you waste half an hour watching YouTube videos about like dachshund puppies, right? Because they're cute. And then you come back and you're like, what was I? So we're keeping you in the app. All the training is in the app. You don't need to go anywhere else. And I think that it's really exciting, and Adobe has built the engine to build these tutorials. And it's fabulous to work with the people there, because they really care about what they do, and really take responsibility for what they do, which is great when you do everything right, but when you make a mistake, it's still your fault. And here's the thing, I had wanted to work for Adobe for 25 years. And I told them that, and they're like, why didn't you tell us? We would have hired you. And I'm like, let people know what you want and where you want to go and what you want to do. I mean, don't do it obnoxiously. But this is the community. It's just like when you're trying to find a new apartment or a roommate, you let a couple people know, and then they help you. And the photo community it's a small community. And that's why I appreciate having so many familiar faces here, because this is our community, and we are going to support one another. And I think it's really, really important.
I'm just curious, I noticed that you used yourself as a subject often. Was that initially a conscious decision, or was it simply the fact that you didn't have access to people that were willing to come model for you, and then you just kept up with it? Yeah, I'm just curious, what was the reasoning behind using yourself as the subject as opposed to getting a model? Or
I'm free. It was typical. It's hard to believe I'm actually a very shy person. And so the idea of having someone come in and like, no, you can take off your clothes, was a little daunting to me. But also, I found it easier and when I work with people now, I do what I'm asking them to do. And if I can do the pose or work with the artifacts, then they can do it. So it is really has to do with myself and my identity and how I see myself. And we will not get into body dysmorphia, but I suffered under it badly. There I was always 5 more pounds to lose, which if you look at me is ridiculous. Okay. And I suffered really badly under it. And so that was part of it also. I did a series, thank you, I didn't show it. It was called Every Morning I Get Up and Look at My Butt. It was terrible. See, aren't you glad I didn't show you everything? Now it's in your mind. Oh no. And that's the thing, sometimes, yeah, turn around, right? That's the thing with photography. What's great about photography, you can have ideas and then you try them out. John taught me this, you have a proof of concept. Well, try it out. Even with a simple camera, try it out. And I was like, this is gonna be great. I'm like, after like 4 mornings, like, this is just terrible. And so you don't have to do it. But if you don't try it, you'll be stuck. You've got to do it to get through it. And that's the great thing about photography. It lets you actually see something tangible and look at it again and again from different points of view and ask questions again and keep going. And so that's why I love about that.
Hi, I'm a great fan of yours. I've seen your work before. I have 2 questions. One, as an educator, being in the education system for such a long time, and also being one of the best photographers who's inspired me today to kind of go and venture what I have. The first part of the question is, what is your vision for the next few innovations in the next 20 years in photography? Because you have seen the last 25 years of how Photoshop and how people use apps 20 years ago till today? And as an educator, how do you see art for photographers as education in the next 20 years?
And we are at an art school. For how do I see it? I think the future is all about collaboration. And I've seen that with the transition from film to digital, that when we worked with film, you were like a loner and you would like work in the darkroom pretty much by yourself. And, and then famous photographers would have their special way of developing things and you couldn't see it. I was saying they probably were just spitting into the developer, and there was this sort of like, this is my secret. With digital, there's so much to know, you can't have secrets. You have to be generous, you have to share. And that's part of the community, and that's how you learn, because you can't know it all anymore. And so I really see the future as collaborative, and I'm thrilled to say the image is more and more and more important. And you see people are communicating with images. I mean, literally, last time I was on a website without an image, it was like the DMV. And you don't go there very often. And so in terms of photo education, I think photography is only part of the language. And people need to, of course, the classic, the storytelling, the video, being a responsible citizen. We are incredibly lucky here. I mean, when we went to Zimbabwe, we're like, we're going to donate computers. And they're like, we need a generator. And we're like, oh, we hadn't thought of that. Because we don't think that we're not going to have electricity unless you live in Northern California. All right? And so I think that idea, and what I love about this program here is how international it is and how I see the young people working together. A couple of years ago, we had a student from mainland China and Taiwan. I'm like, oh my God, it's going to be horrible. They could care less. And it gives me hope. And John was the chair of the BFA of Computer Arts, Special Effects, and Animation program. And in animation special effects, you have to work together. And that how the young people can look beyond what we think are problems is really inspiring. And so please, young people, take over the world. We have effed it up. Take it, please. Old people are way too represented. Yeah, yeah. You don't like my politics, don't follow me on Twitter or Facebook.
Speaking of politics, that's what my question was about. How are you using your photography now to address what we're having to live through?
Right. How am I using my photography now? I don't think I am using my photography now to address that. I'm using my words and starting to make connections with the community. One little thing we did up in Michigan is our pumpkins are blue because Trump has ruined orange for me. and they're beautiful. And we gave neighbors the blue pumpkins too. And so I haven't done that, and literally every single day I thank the Lord that my parents are not here to see what's going on, because they would be shocked. When my parents moved back to Germany after living here for 25 years, they kept the blue passports. They were in Berlin during Nazism, when the Americans came in, when the Russians came in. They kept the blue passport for all those years. They refused, we're not going to be Germans again. And so it's horrific. God, it's so uplifting. Good. So be aware, don't take anything for granted. And our votes count more in Michigan. Yes. Yay.
Katrin, maybe on the same subject that was raised earlier about digital innovation, what are some of the things that you're aware of that are coming down the pipeline?
Mm-hmm. I said that Adobe, they say people that can talk about it shouldn't, and people that don't know anything do talk. Now there's a product manager here from Adobe also. I don't have to answer this question by myself. You're seeing the more interconnectivity, and you're seeing how that the tablets and the phones are replacing the desktop. And you know that Photoshop is coming out on the iPad. It's the first step. And that what the whole idea is, it's literally imaging anywhere. And I used to have to wait to get home to download files and to back them up and open them up. And now I'm like, I'm on the bus. And if I'm processing the image in Lightroom, I'm using the exact same engine as you're using on the desktop. And the tablets are just getting so much better. So that ability to image anywhere with the quality of the cameras is really exciting. We're not tied down anymore. You know I wasn't going to answer that question.
Okay, so thank you so much, Katrin. Yes.